Never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would end up on the same bed with three hot, shirtless men. I lay perfectly still, sandwiched between abs, biceps, and trouble. I should have felt lucky, desired, maybe even smug. But instead, my brain screamed, how the hell did I let it get this far? And worse, why do I kind of like it? Yes, you read that right. I think I need to start from the beginning for you to understand how I ended up in this situation. Flashback. A night before. I should have known that the phrase "just one more shot" is basically the devil's lullaby. But when your boss clinks a tequila glass against yours and says, "Congratulations on the promotion, you earned it," well, you don't exactly reply, "Sorry, no thanks, I'm trying to live past 30. So I took the shot. And another. And another. Fast forward to 1 a.m. and I was stumbling into my apartment building lobby like Bambi on ice skates. I remember thinking, wow, the marble floor is really shiny, right before I puked all over it. Cue applause. Well, not actual applause. Just my own body collapsing dramatically while I mentally composed my obituary. He died as he lived, embarrassing himself publicly. And that's when I saw them. Mathew, messy dark hair, glasses sliding down his nose, wearing a cardigan like he's auditioning for Hot Professor Who Hates You. He pinched his nose at me like my existence personally offended him. Nate, shirt unbuttoned to a level that made me wonder if he'd lost a bet. Grinning like the chaos I was currently exuding was the best free entertainment of his week. Lewis, immaculate suit, not a single hair out of place, looking at me the way my mom used to look at my failed science projects. Together, they were the holy trinity of too hot to handle. And they were staring at me. "Oh, great," Mathew said flatly, adjusting his glasses. "The lobby gremlin's drunk again." Nate laughed. "Lobby gremlin? Babe, he looks more like a lost puppy who rolled in his own vomit. Cute, though. Messy, but cute." Lewis sighed so deeply it could have powered a wind turbine. "Step aside. If he passes out here, someone's calling building security and I am not explaining this mess to them." Next thing I knew, I was being hoisted up by three pairs of very strong arms which should have been sexy. Except I was pretty sure one of them muttered, "Dead weight," while another commented, "At least he smells like tequila instead of cheap beer." I vaguely remember them arguing as they half-carried, half-dragged me toward my apartment. Mathew, "Watch his head. God, have you never carried a human before?" Nate, "Relax, Professor. If I can carry a drunk supermodel out of a pool in Ibiza, I can handle our cute little neighbor here." Lewis, "If you drop him on my shoes, I'll murder you both." I think I tried to say thank you, but it came out as, "You're shiny angels." Then I blacked out. Flashback ends. The next day. When I woke up, my first thought was, wow, my head is auditioning for a percussion section. My second thought was, why am I in bed with three shirtless men? Yes, you read that right. Mathew was sitting against my headboard, flipping through a book, smirking like he'd been waiting for this exact reaction. Nate was sprawled beside me, one arm thrown across my waist like we were in some Netflix rom-com poster. And Lewis? He was at the foot of the bed, typing on his laptop because apparently, even in a potential orgy situation, work came first. I shot up, nearly headbutting Mathew. "What the hell?" Nate stretched lazily. "Morning, sweetheart. Congrats. You had one wild night. Mathew didn't even look up from his book. Impressive stamina. I'd almost be proud if I wasn't traumatized." Lewis closed his laptop with a snap. "Next time, hydrate." "You were pathetic," I gaped. "What do you mean, one wild night?" Nate smirked. "Oh, you know. A little of him," he gestured at Mathew. "A little of me." He winked. "And a lot of him." He nodded at Lewis. My soul left my body. My obituary rewrote itself. Died of sheer humiliation. Oh my God, I can't. I scrambled out of bed, tripping over my own pants. I'm moving. I'm leaving. Witness protection. Goodbye forever. That's when Lewis sighed and muttered, "It was a prank, Peter. You blacked out. We just took care of you. Gave you clean clothes. Stayed over to make sure you didn't choke in your sleep." They all burst out laughing while I stood there, red-faced, reconsidering every life choice that had led me to this moment. And that's when it began. The absolute chaos of being fought over by 3 ridiculously hot neighbors. A few days later, I had fully intended to avoid them all forever. I really did. But the universe apparently signed me up for the humiliation extended cut. Because 2 nights later, I was pacing in my apartment, practicing my big promotion presentation out loud, and who knocks on my door? Of course, Mathew. He leaned on my doorway, arms crossed, glasses glinting in that "I'm smarter than you" way. "Are you trying to bore your walls to death, or is this rehearsal?" I groaned. "Please leave me to suffer in peace." He smirked, stepping inside without permission. Classic. "Your pacing sounds like a dying walrus. You'll put your audience to sleep before you even get to the financials." "Wow," I said flatly. "Thank you for that TED Talk." He ignored me and sat at my dining table. "Start over. I'll give feedback," I blinked. "You? Feedback? On corporate strategy slides? You're a literature professor." "Exactly," he said, smirking. "If you can make me care, your actual colleagues will be easy." And somehow that logic worked. So I started again. And yes, he roasted me mercilessly. "That joke was terrible. Your pacing is uneven. Try saying that without looking like you're confessing to murder." But every now and then, he'd slip in something softer. "Breathe. You've got this," or, when I stumbled, literally stumbled, over my chair. "Here." He handed me tea, freshly made, like it had been waiting for me. And when I was fixing my tie in the mirror later, he walked over silently, adjusted it, his fingers brushing against my collar. The air between us crackled. I cleared my throat. "So, you're just doing this because you enjoy making fun of me, right?" He smirked. "Partially. But also," he hesitated, rare for him, "you're better than you think." And then he left, just like that, leaving me standing there, heart pounding, tie suddenly feeling a little too tight. A few days later, chaos came in the form of a loud knock at 11 p.m. I opened the door to find Nate, grinning with that troublemaker sparkle in his eyes. "Get dressed," he said. "It's 11 at night. Some of us have jobs." He wiggled his eyebrows. "Exactly. Which is why you need fun before you turn into a boring office drone." Before I could argue, he grabbed my wrist and dragged me upstairs, onto the roof of our building. The city stretched out around us, lights twinkling, sky smeared with stars fighting past the glow. "See? Worth it," he said, plopping down on the edge, legs dangling. "This is my favorite spot. Usually I bring dates up here." "Wow," I said. "So I'm just another notch on your rooftop railing?" He laughed. "Don't be jealous, sweetheart. You're special. You didn't even have to bribe me with pizza." We sat there, bantering, laughing, and then, out of nowhere, he got quiet. He pointed. "That's Orion. Or maybe it's just a bunch of streetlights." "I'm bad at stars," I smiled despite myself. "Why do I feel like you're trying to impress me with astrology right now?" He turned his head, and for once his grin slipped. His voice softened. "Because I want you to look at me and see more than just some shallow guy who flirts with everyone." The sincerity in his eyes knocked the wind out of me. And then, because vulnerability is apparently his kryptonite, he slapped my shoulder, grinned, and said, "Anyway, bet you can't climb that water tank faster than me." We ended up racing like teenagers until I almost fell and he caught me. Arms tight around my waist, his chest against my back, his breath in my ear. For a second, neither of us moved. And then, of course, he ruined it. Told you I'd catch you. Always do cocky. Infuriating. Gorgeous. A few weeks later, I was eating cold leftover noodles one night when my door swung open without warning. "Don't you knock?" I sputtered, chopsticks midair. Lewis stood there, arms crossed, holding grocery bags like a judgmental Martha Stewart. "You're going to die if you keep eating like that." "Maybe I want to die. Ever thought of that?" "Yes," he deadpanned. "Frequently." He marched in, unpacked ingredients, and within 15 minutes had hijacked my kitchen. I just sat there, blinking at the sudden invasion. He cooked beautifully, precise, efficient. And when he plated food in front of me, it looked like something out of a magazine. "Eat," he ordered. I rolled my eyes but took a bite. My soul left my body. "This is incredible." He smirked faintly. Obviously. As I ate, he wandered around, fixing things without asking, tightening my wobbly chair leg, replacing a burnt-out light bulb, straightening the stack of mail on my counter. Finally, I said, "You know, for someone who pretends to hate me, you spend a lot of time in my apartment." He paused, eyes softening, just for a second. "Someone has to make sure you don't fall apart." My heart stuttered. I wanted to tease him. I wanted to push. But the words stuck in my throat. So instead, I just ate my perfect dinner while sneaking glances at the man, who looked like he'd walked out of a luxury magazine and into my disaster life. A few weeks later. It didn't happen overnight. I wasn't some Disney prince tripping down the stairs while birds sang overhead. It was gradual, messy, human. One Saturday morning, I caught Nate hanging out of the kitchen window shirtless, singing badly to a Bruno Mars song. I yelled, "You sound like a dying blender," and he grinned instead of flipping me off. Later that day, he showed up at my door with a smoothie. "If I'm a blender, you're tasting the results." Did I laugh? Yes. Did my stomach flip? Also, yes. That was the first moment I saw him look at me like I was more than a neighbor who borrowed his sugar. A few days later. One rainy night, the power went out. Everyone else stayed locked up but Mathew. He knocked on my door holding 2 flashlights and a bag of marshmallows. "You've got the biggest balcony," he said. "Campfire vibes?" We roasted marshmallows over candles, told stupid ghost stories, and when thunder cracked, he squeezed my hand like a reflex. He didn't let go until the lights came back. My chest ached in a way marshmallows couldn't explain. A few weeks later. Lewis. He was last because, well, he was the hardest to crack. Always organized, always neat. But one day, I found him crouched in the hallway, trying to fix a broken plant pot. His hands were covered in soil, his shirt untucked. He looked so defeated. "Wow," I said softly, "you're human." He let out this breathy laugh, vulnerable and real. That's when I caught him watching me. Not with irritation, but with something almost tender. Something that made me want to mess up more of his perfect world, just to be the one to see him undone. And just like that, all 3 threads had been tied. Without me realizing, I'd walked into a love triangle. Scratch that, a love square. A few weeks later. Nate dragged me into his spontaneous adventures. Midnight pizza runs, karaoke in the living room, impromptu dance-offs in the hallway. With him, everything was alive, fun, ridiculous. I felt young in a way I hadn't since high school. Mathew and I shared quiet chaos. Late-night rants about life. Car rides where I clutched his hand too tightly, don't judge me, speed terrifies me. And one time he punched a vending machine for eating my chips. "Nobody messes with you," he said like it was gospel. My heart, gone. I had no idea that the literature professor had a side like this. It was like, with me, he was someone else. He was himself, Lewis. I don't even know when and how, but every time I was near him, an electric jolt went through my body. It was like my body signaling me that he was rare. Special in a way I couldn't describe. Lewis made me slow down, helped me file my bills, fixed my leaky faucet, brought me soup when I sneezed once. But he also teased me dryly. Your closet is a war crime. He challenged me to grow. And underneath his polish, there was a warmth that felt like home. I should have seen the disaster coming, but I didn't. I was too busy, enjoying every moment and not realizing the consequences it had. A month later. And then suddenly, chaos. Pure, unfiltered chaos. It started with breakfast. One morning, I opened my door to find 3 trays of food shoved at me simultaneously. Mathew, a perfectly brewed black coffee and a dry piece of toast. Nate, leftover pizza and champagne. Lewis, a gourmet omelet with sides plated like art. They all glared at each other like wolves. I'm not eating 3 breakfasts, I said. Nate winked. Babe, with a little training, you could. Lewis muttered, disgusting. Mathew sipped his coffee smugly. He'll pick mine. Because he has taste. It was the omelet. Obviously. But I pretended to nibble all 3 to avoid bloodshed. Then came the car incident. I walked outside for work, and there they were. 3 cars lined up. Mathew in a beat-up vintage convertible. Nate in a flashy sports car. And Lewis in a sleek black sedan as usual. They nearly started a traffic war over who got to drive me. I ended up walking. And then, the gifts. Nate showed up with roses. Mathew tossed me a sarcastic, world's okayest neighbor mug. Lewis handed me vitamins. I laughed so hard I almost cried. But deep down, I felt loved, wanted, desired, and very, very screwed. Because I was falling for all 3. A few weeks later, it started small. Nate invited me to dinner. Mathew overheard and said, not happening. He's watching the game with me. Then Lewis appeared like an avenging angel with, actually, I'm helping him fix his tax receipts. I laughed nervously. Guys? But they weren't listening to me. They were circling each other like wolves. Nate. At least I make him laugh. Mathew. Yeah? And I'm the one he trusts with his fears. Lewis. Both. Of you are idiots. He doesn't need chaos, he needs stability. The air snapped. Their voices got louder, their words sharper, and then raw confession spilled out. I like him, Nate snapped. So do I, Mathew argued. Obviously I do too, Lewis said while staring at me. It was like someone yanked the floor out from under me. My 3 neighbors, my 3 friends, were confessing at once, because of me. And suddenly all I could feel was guilt. I didn't say anything. It was too much for me to process. I just went away, alone for once, but inside, it was like someone had twisted a knife. A few months later. You'd think 3 grown men could behave at a rooftop party. You'd be wrong. I was already nervous about the building's monthly mixer. Free wine, fairy lights, slightly too much small talk. Harmless, right? Except when your 3 hottest neighbors all have competing crushes on you. It's basically the Hunger Games, apartment complex edition. I should have known trouble was brewing when Nate swooped in first, wrapping an arm around my shoulders and announcing to the room, everybody, this is my favorite neighbor. The only one I'd let steal my Wi-Fi password, cue his dazzling smile and several jealous glares. Then Mathew strolled over, plucked the wine glass out of my hand, and replaced it with sparkling water. You don't need more alcohol. We all know how that ends. His smirk was sharp enough to slice the tension. Before I could reply, Lewis appeared, pristine as ever, holding a plate of food. You didn't eat before drinking, did you? Honestly, he handed me the plate like a stern dad at a cookout. And just like that, the 3 of them were circling me like sharks with competing agendas. Maybe he doesn't want to be babysat, Nate snapped. Maybe he doesn't want to be dragged into reckless midnight stunts, Mathew countered. At least I feed him actual meals, Lewis bit out. Their voices rose. People started staring. And then, boom, Nate slammed down his drink. You think this is about food or stargazing or presentations? He's the only person who's ever looked at me like I'm more than just some shallow flirt. You think I'm not serious? I'd drop everything for him. My jaw dropped. Mathew scoffed, but his voice cracked. At least you get to wear your heart on your sleeve. I'm terrified of letting anyone in. And yet, he makes me want to. The air shifted. Lewis clenched his fists, face tight, eyes raw. I've spent my whole life controlling everything. And now, I can't control this. I can't control how much He cut himself off, shaking his head and stormed off, leaving me, Nate, Mathew, and pretty much everyone on the roof confused. Everyone around us went silent. My chest squeezed. My brain short-circuited. And like the emotionally intelligent adult I am, I panicked. I should just move away, I blurted. Yeah, that's best. Problem solved. New apartment, no drama, no hot neighbors fighting over me. Done. Dead silence. And that's when I knew that 3 hearts were broken at once. A few hours later, the rest of the party blurred. People whispered, music buzzed, but all I saw were them. The 2 men who somehow had cracked me open without permission. But I still felt something was missing. Lewis. His absence felt more dangerous and upsetting than anything else. We ended up back in my apartment. The air was heavy. No one spoke at first. Then Mathew broke the silence. Voice low. You think we did all this because it's fun? Because we enjoy fighting? I'm scared, okay? Scared you'll realize I'm not worth it. Scared I'll push you away like I do with everyone else. Nate leaned against the wall, head tipped back, voice softer than I'd ever heard it. Everyone thinks I'm shallow. A joke. But when you look at me, I feel real, like I'm someone worth sticking around for. And it terrifies me I had called Lewis, but he didn't answer. And just as I was about to say something, the door swung open. Lewis came in, stood stiff, hands gripping the back of a chair until his knuckles went white. I don't lose control. Not at work, not at home, not anywhere. But with you, I do. And I hate it. And I love it. And I don't know how to stop. I swallowed hard, blinking back sudden tears. They weren't just hot neighbors anymore. They were men who had peeled themselves bare in front of me. And I realized something. The prank that started it all. The 3 of them working together to take care of me, even if they made it a joke, wasn't really a joke. It was love. Messy, chaotic, different kinds of love. And I had to choose. A few days later, after the Rooftop disaster and their confessions, I did what any rational adult man would do. I avoided them. Not in a change my name and move to Mexico way. More like a duck behind the lobby plant when I hear footsteps way. My guilt was unbearable. I kept replaying their words, their vulnerabilities, the fight, the way they looked at me like I was the center of a storm I never asked for. So I pulled away. Politely. Quietly. I told myself it was better this way. They deserved peace, not chaos wrapped in a human body like me. But here's the thing about hot neighbors. They live next door. You can't exactly ghost someone when they share your wall. Nate was first. One night, I found a note taped to my door. Stop blaming yourself. No one ever fought this hard over me before, so you must be worth it. Don't forget that. With it, a ridiculous bouquet of neon plastic flowers. I laughed, then cried. Then Mathew slid a book under my door. It was circled, highlighted, annotated, with a sticky note. I don't know how to say this out loud, but you're not a problem to fix. You're my favorite distraction. And Lewis? He didn't leave notes. He left soup. Actual steaming hot soup in a thermos. Every night without fail. And my heart cracked wide open again. The truth came slowly, then all at once. I loved them, all three. For different reasons. For how they made me laugh, challenged me, cared for me. But with Lewis, it was different. With him, it wasn't fireworks or adrenaline. It was quiet, solid, safe. The kind of love that didn't burn, it anchored. And after weeks of spinning in circles of chaos and guilt and wanting, I realized that what terrified me most wasn't losing them all. It was losing him. A few days later, I found him on the balcony one night, fussing with a potted plant like it was his sworn enemy. He looked up, startled when I stepped onto my balcony. "Hi," I said, awkward as hell. "Hi," he replied, stiff, guarded, always guarded. "I need to tell you something." He crossed his arms. "If this is another apology, don't. You don't need to keep carrying the guilt." "It's not an apology," I said. My voice shook, but I pushed through. "It's a confession." His brows lifted ever so slightly. I thought I could distance myself. I thought it was the only way to stop hurting everyone. But every day without you, without your stupid soup, or your lectures about how I can't survive on takeout, or your terrifyingly perfect ironing skills, I realized I don't want to be without you. You make me feel safe and seen, and like maybe I'm not a total disaster. Silence. His jaw worked, his eyes dark. For a moment, I thought I'd ruined everything. Then, he dropped the plant, crossed the divide in 2 strides, and kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't controlled. It was fierce, desperate. A lifetime of restraint finally shattering. His hands gripped my face like I was something precious, irreplaceable. When we broke apart, breathless, he whispered against my lips, "I've waited so long to lose control with you." I melted. Utterly, completely melted. Of course, this being my life, the moment couldn't stay perfect. Nate popped his head over the balcony door, smirking. "Finally, took you too long enough." I was about to bet money you'd chicken out. Mathew appeared behind him, holding a mug of tea. "I'd say congratulations, but I'm still annoyed you didn't pick me." Lewis groaned but kept his arm firmly around me. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. And when I leaned into Lewis's chest, the other two rolled their eyes but smiled too. Because somehow, despite everything, we were still us. Chaotic, messy, a weird little family. And as I stood there, held close by the man I'd chosen, with the others muttering threats and sarcastic comments but still very much in my life, I realized something. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the start of the best, most unexpected chapter yet. 1 year later. It's wild how a year can change everything. Nate, Mr. Reckless, Mr. Let's break into the pool at midnight, actually got himself a real job. A good one too. The kind where he wears shirts with buttons, still unbuttoned too low, but hey, progress. He still texts me memes at ungodly hours, but he's happy, grounded. Mathew shocked everyone by falling for one of the college professors. The man who once scoffed at love now brings someone coffee in the morning. We still exchange book recommendations and sarcastic jabs. But when I see the softness in his eyes for his new boyfriend, I know he's exactly where he's supposed to be. And me? I wake up every morning next to Lewis. In my apartment. Our apartment now. The man who once insisted on order somehow made room for my chaos, and maybe secretly loves it. This morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and something sizzling. Groggy, I stumbled out of bed and nearly walked straight into a wall when I saw him. Lewis, shirtless, cooking at the stove like some kind of domestic Greek god. I leaned on the doorframe, not even trying to hide the drool. If breakfast is half as good as that view, I might actually propose on the spot. He didn't even turn around. Stop staring. Stop being, I shot back, grinning. Finally, he looked at me over his shoulder, eyebrow arched. You're impossible. I patted closer, smirking. Impossible to resist, maybe. Tell me, is this how you practice kissing too? All calm and controlled? Do you time yourself with a stopwatch? 3 seconds, lips only, no tongue, must maintain efficiency. He set the spatula down. Slowly. Too slowly. His eyes darkened, and I knew I'd poked the bear. You really want to test that theory? He asked, voice low. Before I could answer, he closed the space between us in 3 strides, grabbed me by the waist, and kissed me so hard my knees nearly buckled. All control. Gone. His mouth was demanding, searing, leaving me gasping when he finally pulled back. I blinked up at him, lips swollen, breathless, smiling like an idiot. Okay, noted. 0 efficiency, 100% effectiveness, smug. That was the only word for the look on his face. He knew he'd just won. And I? I just started laughing, forehead pressed against his chest, my giggles muffled by his heartbeat. God, I love you, I said into his skin. His arms tightened around me. I love you too. And honestly, falling for you was the most reckless, illogical thing I've ever done. He pulled back just enough to look me in the eye, his smirk softening into something real. And the best decision I'll ever make. We kissed again, slower this time. No pranks, no chaos, no competition. Just us. 1 year later, and still somehow my 3 hot neighbors had changed my life. But it was this man, the calm to my storm, the order to my chaos, who held me together. And for once, I didn't question it. The end. Who do you think is a perfect match for you? Mathew, Nate, or Lewis? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to become part of our Rainbow Force, and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. Stay wholesome.